Part of his profile inside the White House was to create peace in the Middle East. Jared Kushner also acted as a foreign policy advisor to his father-in-law, Donald Trump. And tonight, he is getting a lot of attention for what he said during a talk at Harvard about what's happening and what could happen inside of Gaza.
Both sides are spending a fortune on military. I think neither side really wants to have, a terrorist organization enclaved right between them. And Gaza's waterfront property. It could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up, livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there. But I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
Here to weigh in, Josh Rogin, columnist for the Washington Post. Josh, I just have to get your initial reaction to those remarks by Jared Kushner.
Right. Well, my initial reaction is sort of shock. I know we shouldn't be shocked at this point by the sheer sort of callousness and insensitivity of calling it a little unfortunate when 30,000 people have been killed. There's a terrorist attack that killed hundreds of Israelis. The entire region's inflamed. And Jared Kushner's reaction is, oh, well, it's a real shame we couldn't put some condos here. That's my initial reaction. But if you put that aside, I think what the takeaway here is that, what we see is a preview into what a Trump administration Israel policy would really look like. And Jared Kushner said the quiet part out loud, that he thinks we should move the people out and clean it up. Okay? And if that's not exactly a call for forced displacement of 2 million Palestinians and ethnic cleansing in Gaza, but it's pretty close. It's kind of getting there. And that is a really troubling prospect for an American administration, but it also could be sort of a dog whistle to some parts of the Israeli establishment that actually favor that plan.
Yeah, that is the part that stood out to me as well, where he talked about moving the people out, as were his exact words there. And I think what's the important context here is Donald Trump is someone who often speaks his mind. One thing we have not heard a lot from him about in recent months since October 7th is how he'd be handling what is happening inside Gaza right now if he were in the Oval Office. And I wonder what those comments by Jared Kushner, someone who did play a key role inside the White House, what that says to you about what it could look like if Trump was in office amid something like this.
Right. Now, Jared Kushner has said that he doesn't plan to join a second Trump administration, if that's a thing. Nevertheless, it's pretty clear that Donald Trump listens to him on these issues. And, I'm old enough to remember the last administration when he did lead these issues. And his plan then was pretty much the same, where, well, we'll make a deal, we'll do some real estate deals, and the Palestinians will be happy, and we'll normalize relations, everything will be hunky-dory. But it didn't work out because the Palestinians are not just interested in real estate, they're interested in dignity and sovereignty and autonomy and all of the things that most humans want out of these types of situations. So I think what it says is that the Trump administration, if it follows this pattern, would be one that aligns with the very far-right parts of the Netanyahu coalition, who are now not so quietly calling for exactly what Jared just called for, which is the resettlement of Gaza. What Jared said, if you listen to more of that speech, which I unfortunately had to do to prepare for this interview, is that, while wars happen and borders change and Gaza is not a real thing and the Arabs will have to take the Palestinians and tough luck to the Palestinians. That was his, I'm boiling it down to be sure, but that was the gist of it. And you could imagine the Trump administration taking exactly that tack. And, there are a lot of criticisms to be had of the Biden administration's approach to Israel, but I think most, fair-minded people in America would say that aligning the U.S. policy with the farthest rightist parts of the Netanyahu coalition would be a disaster.
It also just, even pulling it back some from the Middle East reminded me of when, Trump was talking to Kim Jong-un about the idea of waterfront property in North Korea and what that could look like. He actually mentioned it at a summit in 2018 after he had met with the dictator. Just a reminder of what Trump said there.
They have great beaches. You see that whenever they're exploding their cannons into the ocean, right? So I said, boy, look at that. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind? And I explained, I said, instead of doing that, you could have the best hotels in the world right there. Think of it from a real estate perspective. You have South Korea, you have China, and they own the land in the middle. How bad is that?
It's like this idea of foreign policy through the lens of a real estate deal.
Right. The Trump brand is that all the D.C. foreign policy establishment doesn't know what it's talking about, and everything can be done as a real estate deal. Well, it didn't work in Hanoi with Trump and Kim Jong-un, and it's not going to work with the Palestinians. In the end, not everything can be bought off, and not everything is for sale. And I think that's what Trump realized, and that's what Jared would realize if he were ever given the power to be in charge of this issue again.
Josh Rogin, thank you.